Welcome back to the Words from the Nerds podcast, episode 41, The Last of Us, episode 6. We are jumping right into it. As always, I am your host, Aiden H Talks on all socials, and we have Charlie.
The glorious No More Sickness voice, Charlie. Still got a little bit of the frog in the throat, but we're still back in action. Here to talk about The Last of Us episode 6, and oh my goodness, they just keep hitting us again and again and again, banger after banger.
Yeah.
This time we knew, Aiden and I, of course, knew that like the scenes in this episode were gonna tear your heart out with multiple scenes in this episode, specifically more like and diving in a little bit into spoilers, but the scene in the house between Ellie and Joel, which I thought they played fantastically. I don't think it quite surpassed the game, like I've said with a couple of scenes this season, but it was still very, very good in its own right.
Yeah. And I just want to say right off the bat, and we'll touch obviously more on all of this later, the one thing I would fix in this episode, which I get it, I love it either way, but I just wanted to hear, Ellie, you are treading on some mighty thin ice right now. I was like, oh God, I was like, give it to me. But honestly, I like the way Joel played it. I think he played it just as good. And so, but yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I feel like the game, it kind of works. It works better in the game as well. Especially, I really wanted to hear Ellie say, I forget. Are you afraid I'm gonna end up like Sam or something like that?
I know, yeah, I wanted her to say that too.
I was really wanting, because we had, like episode was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was really hoping we get to hear it, but we didn't. But like, I mean, dude, this one still managed, like that moment still managed to make me cry, like big time. Like I'm talking about sitting here like like shit, dude, it hit so hard. But yeah, we can get into the episode. We can go through it, and we'll get to that moment later. Just want to say, 800 views.
Crazy, guys.
Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania podcast. If you were to tell me at the beginning of the year, the episode we'd have the most views in February, going like at the beginning of the year, the episode we'd have the most views on would be Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, I would have told you you're crazy. But yeah, dude, holy shit, what a freaking milestone, especially for a podcast episode that was that long. We went on for like 2 hours that episode.
Yeah,
for it to have 800 views, man. Yeah, we went longer than the movie. So crazy. If any of y'all have watched that and you're also watching this, or listened to that episode and you're also listening to this one, thank you 100 times. We jumped up a couple of subscribers also, so if you're watching this and you're new, welcome. Go listen to all of our other amazing episodes. We've had some very good and we've had some very good discussions for some very good, movies and shows. We've had some very good discussions on some very bad movies and shows. And so if you want to go check that out, be our guest. But nonetheless, thank you so much for that crazy milestone once again.
Seriously, guys, that is incredible. I mean, and a lot of it we owe to Mimish and everybody he knows. Mimish, thank you so much. We appreciate you, bro. And Ben was there, I guess, too, whatever. But seriously, guys, that is crazy. 800 views. We couldn't, like Aiden said, we couldn't have imagined that, especially for Ant-Man and the Wasp. And if you had told us back then, I probably would have thought like, oh, damn, the movie must be pretty crazy then. Which I guess not.
It must have been amazing.
Well, I guess that's to come later on with Steven Yeun being cast.
Dude, yeah.
Oh my God.
Also, yeah, I wanted to get into that, like quick housekeeping, because as you all know, all hail our mighty mouse overlord at Disney. We are Disney shills. We are Marvel shows. So, we have to touch on this a little bit. Steven Yeun casted in the Thunderbolts in a very important role at that. Yeah. This ain't no William Jackson Harper situation on our hands. No, we got Steven Yeun, dude, in a huge role for the Thunderbolts.
And I know a lot of people are thinking Sentry, and so like that's and from what we know about the movie, that seems like the only casting choice that would make sense, because everything else is already pretty much filled up. And I that makes me so happy. I cannot get enough of Steven Yeun, bro. When they ripped us away from him, spoilers for The Walking Dead, if you're watching it right now, when they ripped him away from us in that show in season 7, I was distraught. And then They brought him back with Invincible. Robert Kirkman brought him back with Invincible. Absolutely spectacular. And he's going to be back with season 2. And now the MCU is putting him in there. And he was in Nope this last year as well. Fantastic. Dude,
Dude.
I give me all the Steven Yeun content I can get, bro. Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Especially Invincible season 2. Like Jonathan Majors might have this first half of the year packed up, but Steven
Ugh,
Yeun's gonna be coming for it, whether it's this year, next year, or whatever. Two amazing actors that I'm
seriously.
so excited to have in the MCU. Like, holy bro. It's only up from here. But along with that does come some kind of scary news. Jonathan Krasinski. Why did I call him Jonathan? What the fuck, bro? Jonathan Krasinski.
Jonathan.
John Krasinski is heavily, heavily rumored to be coming back as Mr. Fantastic, which I don't hate. I don't hate, but I kind of want to see some like throw someone else in there. Throw some Denzel, like not Denzel Washington, John David Washington in there. I mean, you already have Kang, who's a descendant of Reed Richards. Throw John David Washington, dude. Them going back and forth, Kang and Fantastic Four, Jonathan Majors and John David Washington, all for it, or anybody. But I think I just kind of wanted to see something new after Krasinski. I was like, all right, this is a cool little fan servicey moment, like
Yeah. That's
but
for me, it's like it doesn't there's not a casting for Reed that I genuinely like hate vehemently. Like every choice that has been thrown out there, I have liked to some degree. Even John Krasinski. I 100% agree with you though. Like I wanted something fresh and new in there, especially, and I don't like to judge his performance in Multiverse of Madness too much because like there wasn't that much to do. He was literally the first of the Illuminati to die, So
yeah.
like, um, and just the writing for his character in that little cameo sequence just wasn't that fantastic, wasn't enough for John Krasinski to really play with in my eyes. But even with that said, with what little he was given, I don't think it was spectacular by any
Hmm.
means. And so I was really hoping to get somebody else in there. And again, I love John Krasinski. He used to be my favorite, my top pick for Reed Richards back in the day when it was first happening and that like fan made image of him was going around. I was like, oh yeah, that would be sick. And then cast Emily Blunt, yada yada yada. I've since
Yeah.
grown from that, but and the other thing is I've seen a lot of with that coming out. I've seen, and I know we're detracting a little bit, guys, but um, with the other thing with that is a lot of with that coming out, I've seen a lot of people talking about variants in the MCU and like, oh, well, this actually makes sense. Someone said this actually makes sense with how they set up variants in the MCU. I'm like, well, that's not true because look at No Way
Yeah.
Home, different versions of Spider-Man. Look at Loki, different versions of Loki. Variants are just random. They're like they can look the same, they cannot look the same. It's like, but with Kang, and sometimes they're just all the same. But Kang is I feel like an example of like a prominent being in whatever multiverse he's in. Like he's this very powerful person, I guess. And so every version of him is going to look like that, I guess. At least from what we've seen so far, judging off of and a little bit of spoilers for Quantum Mania. 3, 2, 1. If you haven't seen the movie, the mid credit scene, we see the Council of Kangs. Every single Kang there looks like Jonathan Majors, maybe with some little changes here and there, but so I understand what that person was trying to say, but at the same time, it's like that can't be said for every single character. It seems like it's completely random, and I like that it's completely random. I feel like having to tie it all down because if it wasn't random, if every single Spider-Man variant looked like Tom Holland, we wouldn't get No Way Home, or at least we
Mhm.
would, and it would just be lame because it's all 3 different versions of Tom Holland. Who needs that?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree. After that Multiverse of Madness, I kind of felt like our hopes were, or our wishes were granted in a way, and it's like, all right, now time to jump into our main Fantastic Four.
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it, but like I said, like there's just so much amazing actors that you can choose from. I agree. I haven't seen one fan cast that I haven't liked. I mean, people have also even said Stephen Yeun was in talks, or
yeah, I remember
people
that.
not even just fan casting him, or Diego Luna from Andor,
Yeah,
and Dev Patel. They said that those two were like really, really, really in the running and like close to signing. But then there's been some other like quote unquote leakers that have said that they've never been or that they were talked to for a little bit, but that's it. It was never like close to being done. And so I don't know. I think it would just be cool to see another Reed Richards. You have the ability to do so, but if you don't, like, I get it. But I don't think that should. And again, yeah, it would kind of fuel the whole variants are the same thing, which I don't really like, especially because we've already seen that's not true.
Yeah.
But even if it wasn't debunked, like I um I wouldn't like every single variant to look just like you. I would like it to be randomized. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm hoping for some fantastic forecasting news, regardless, because we've kind of been up and down with that.
Oh my
Guys, I think
gosh.
they're gonna do it at Comic Con, or I think they're gonna do it at whatever
That's
D23.
crazy, bro. That literally 6 months ago, we were thinking they
Yeah,
were gonna do it, and we still don't have any casting news.
yeah,
That is
dude.
wild.
Did a whole video. And then I'm like, well, I mean, are we gonna have to do another one then when they actually, or are they just gonna drop it on our head and be like the Steven Yeun news today? Like, are they just gonna do
Yeah,
that?
I feel
Like,
like
I
it's
don't
gonna
want
be
that.
something like that, to be honest. Like,
I mean,
because
maybe this year's Comic Con.
yeah, that's the. I mean, hey, if that's actually, I was gonna say because we'll be there, but that's just the one day. Damn it, that'd be sick.
That would actually be sick. I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, I hope, regardless, we get something good, which I think we will.
Truly,
All right, and now we shift into The
back
Last
to
of Us,
peak.
episode 6. Again, like I've seen a lot of people saying on Twitter, 6 for 6. Yeah, dude, 6 for
Absolutely,
6. Another fantastic episode. Brought all the emotions out of you. Not so much action wise, but you know what? That's fine. Um, I feel like I've seen a lot of people saying stuff like this feels like they're jumping through the story too quick, or that certain scenes felt rushed. And a lot of people have been rebutting at them, and I know I think this way. I know you think this way also. It's like most of the game you're looting, or you're like shooting clickers, shooting your way through some clickers. Like,
yeah,
you take it out, you watch the cutscenes, you just watch like a compiled cutscene. It's less than 5 episodes. If you're going an hour length, it's less than
yeah,
episodes worth of content. So like, if you
truly,
think about it, we're kind of going through at a fine pace. And so again, that's what this episode was. We moved the story on a lot, which obviously I love. We leave off on a huge cliffhanger, and which I was not expecting. And we overall we get a lot done. Um, Not so much action wise, but you know what? That's fine. So I love this episode. I think it's around my maybe third favorite. I just love episode 3 and 5 a lot. I think five's number one for me, at least. Three is a
yeah,
close second, and then maybe 1 and 6 are right there. But like I said, you can literally randomize these four that I just mentioned and have them in any order, and I'd probably look at it and be like, yeah,
yeah,
I'd
because
agree with that. I
they're
could
all
see that.
good. They are all truly good.
Exactly. And like episode 2 and 4 are good as well. There's not as great as these episodes, but I mean, like I said, we're comparing tens and nines at this point. Like, I don't think I've went through one episode and been like, that was kind of ass,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
every single one, even 4, I was like, oh, that's definitely the weakest, but it was still very cool and did a lot world building and character building wise. So again, flawless season so far, in my opinion. I think this is knocking it out of the park.
agreed. Um, for me, there was only one like real kind of downside, pacing wise in this episode, and it's a little bit spoilery, so I won't talk on it yet. But um, yeah, this episode, fantastic episode for me. Probably about a 9 out of 10, just because of the pacing thing that I'll talk about later. Um, but this is everything that I hope for an adaptation again, and I know I said that with episode 1, but they did it again with Joel specifically this episode. Oh my god, and I can't wait to talk about that because that was whole I they're changing Joel in such a fantastic way that it's going to work a lot better for what we know is coming. And so, and I say this as well, that I'm jealous of the people who haven't played the game, because I feel like the version they're getting right now is really really damn good. and getting to experience it all fresh like this. Like all the reactions after this week's episode have been awesome. Have been
Yeah,
awesome to
dude.
see.
Yeah.
But uh everything I love the new characters that we're getting as well. At the beginning of the episode, there's a little something with the new characters. I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Mhm.
That added a little like moment of comedy. Right after in the week following a very depressing moment, so that was kind of so a little bit of levity needed.
Yeah.
But I love the way that they handled Jackson in this as well. I love that they went to Jackson instead of the dam like they
Yeah.
did in the game, getting to actually see the community and see what Joel and Ellie could have potentially had
Yeah.
um, if they did things a little bit differently. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
um, yeah, dude. I feel like I hear this thrown around a lot, or even just talked about a lot, where cities or locations or like places that our characters go kind of also feel like a character in the show. And do you hear those sirens?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not terrible. Okay, I bet. I'm like, dude, I'm recording a podcast here. Like, it can wait. You know what I mean? No,
Wait, hold
but,
on, hold on. Okay, I don't hear him anymore.
it's
No,
it's
wait.
loud. It's
I
it's
can
probably
hear.
just when
I
I
can't
talk.
hear.
It's probably just when I talk it picks it up. But it's loud out there. I'm like, bro, hold up. Like, I'm recording. Like, give it a minute. Anyways, where locations like Gotham in the Batman movie, right, that came out last year, where these places feel like another character in the show. I felt like that's kind of what Jackson was right here. As soon as we walk into Jackson, it's like all around just I hate using the word
Alive.
vibes. Yeah, it's alive. It's all around comforting energy. It's just such a nice place, and Ellie's captivated by it. Joel is like kind of impressed. While he is pissed at Tommy, he is still impressed with everything about it, and it added so much to the story, especially knowing the things that me and you know right now. Um, it is kind of bittersweet, and so I was so happy seeing it. It looked just like the game, the goddamn dining hall, man. Fuck, like come on, dude. These set designs are just they just continue to blow me out of the water. And the fucking cinematography in this episode, the
True.
shots, bro. There's a shot with Joel and Ellie at the end where they're on the horse. I really want to make that my wallpaper or like on my computer, like my desktop wallpaper. So good.
Yeah.
There's just so much shots of them just riding on the horse. I thought overall, like as good as the episode was, as good as the progressing the story was, I mean, visual wise, this was stunning. Like probably one of the best episodes we've gotten so far, visual wise, cinematography wise. Maybe
Truly.
besides episode one or something, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'll agree with that. Episode one, I feel like took a lot of time with, especially like with following Sarah around. They took a lot of
yeah,
time with intricate camera shots and whatnot. But no,
yeah,
yeah, this one is no shrink either. But um, one thing that I liked about this a lot, this early part, I thought at first it was very jarring to me how they started it off with the Henry thing from last week again. Um, I was like, damn, they just want us to cry again right off the rip. Um, I guess it served as a sort of reminder, even though I'm it's kind of weird, but because I imagine how could I forget what how could I
yeah,
forget that after it just happened? But um, I guess it was to set up the little timeline of 3 months after that event, and so and that I was having this discussion with someone I know. They said that they don't like how fast it seems to be going. They say that it seems like there's a time jump after every episode, but this was the first one with a time jump,
yeah.
if I remember correctly. Um, first
I,
like
and
major time jump, I guess.
and I don't mean to cut you off, but I feel like a lot of that could also come from just like riding horses, like traveling.
Yeah.
And they do a good bit of that, like, even in this episode when they, like, towards the end, they do a good bit of, like, Ellie says it took them 5 days, and all they do is just show the most important spots and, like, the most important moments, like, some conversations, some jokes they have, and stuff like that, and I feel like, let's say they were making a Red Dead 2 movie, right? Like, you gonna show all that horseback riding from, like, one side of the state or whatever to the other, and so I feel like that's where a lot of that could come from because they do a lot of, like, montages, like, when they're in the truck driving to Kansas City. They
Yeah.
do a lot of stuff like that, so maybe that's where that's coming from. Even then, I'm like,
And that because that's I guess their overall complaint was that like because the game they didn't get to show that kind of stuff like the in between traveling to different cities and they wanted to see their conversations on horseback and stuff like that. And we get a little bit of that towards the end of this episode as on their way to the college. And so once they're they do that as well in the truck sequence in episode 4. And so I can understand that you might want a little bit more of that, but I also just feel like at a certain point it's just gonna be like banter type thing, like how they did on the horse. They were talking about Joel was telling her the rules to football, and then they were talking about his life before as a contractor and everything like that. You know, it's like
yeah,
you really want to like 30 minutes of that per episode. Like that just doesn't seem like it would bode well pacing wise. And so
yeah,
that was just a little thing that I didn't quite understand as like an actual. And I don't know even know if they actually treated it as an actual complaint, but that was one of their gripes with the show so far, and I just didn't quite make sense to me.
yeah. No, it doesn't make sense to me either. I kind of like the way they're going about it, the way they're doing these shots and um, these little like cut in pieces of dialogue between Joel and Ellie while they're on horseback or while they're driving or just going from place to place. I think they're doing it fine. I don't have a problem with it at all. Um, I do want to touch a little bit on the beginning, like first 10, 20, 15 minutes of this episode, um, because we got a little nod to the infamous rabbit scene in the game with
Oh,
the two rabbits he kills. Which I mean, we still could very much see that next episode, or maybe next episode, 2 episodes, episode 8. We could still very much see it, but I thought it was a funny little nod to it. And then
that's
these
true.
these two characters, these two new characters, we gotta
Mhm.
talk about them. Hilarious.
That was yeah, it was just like I can't tell if they hate each other or if there's just like it's just all for like they can't give a rat's ass about this whole situation. I don't know. It was just it played very well. And it played very well in the trailer beforehand too, like the
Yeah.
line of we're trying to figure out how to get west. He's like, "Yeah, okay, go east." Like that, I don't know. It's played so perfectly.
Yeah. And even just the shot of or the scene of her telling where Ellie tells the old lady, she says, "You're not gonna scare us." And she was like, "Scared him."
Scared him.
And I was like,
Yeah,
"Ooh." And I remember seeing that shot in the trailer and just being like, "Damn, that hits." Um, but yeah, dude, they were hilarious. They're just going back and forth. He's like, "You made him soup?" She's like, "Well, yeah, he has a girl with him." And Joel's just like, "Come on, bro. Like his whole spot is just blown up now." Um, I did think they set up Joel, Tommy and everyone in Jackson very well here. Very, very well. I
yeah,
think it could be looked at as like kind of just like a whatever scene, but honestly, I think it set the tone for this episode perfectly.
I agree. I love how they kind of set up with Jackson actually going out on patrols as well. Um,
Yeah.
Different from the game, obviously, because they were at the dam anyway. There was no really need for them to go out on patrol. But for fans of the second game, this isn't really a spoiler. Don't worry. But Jackson is obviously in the second game, and they go out on patrols a lot in The Last of Us Part 2. And so I love that that's how they're found in the show is during like a routine patrol with um, Maria, even though this time around, that's something we should talk about as well. Maria is not the leader of Jackson like she is in the game. She is rather part of a council, which, I guess makes sense in its own right, depending on the kind of community you're trying to run. As I mentioned in this episode, it's a based in communism, so it's a commune. So that
Yeah.
was a funny line too, because I love how Joel just looked at Tommy, and Tommy's like, "Shit, like, god damn it."
Tommy just kind of stands behind and he's like thinking about it. Yeah, that was a very funny moment.
um,
I like that a lot too.
yeah, that was, I feel like the comedy is really was stepped up for this episode too. And again, it's just like talking about the two characters at the beginning, and then like that line that we just mentioned in the Ellie yelling at we know who in the cafeteria, and we'll touch
Hey,
on that as well. Because that didn't lie. Aiden will attest to how that lined up for him, but it didn't line up for me right away. I was like, when I was watching, I didn't think that was her.
yeah,
But anyway, moving on. No, I completely agree. I love um all the different animals that they have in Jackson as well. Like they got sheeps, they got horses, they got dogs. They're running a whole farm over there, dog. And
yeah,
it makes a lot more sense for I don't think we ever saw anything like that in Jackson in the games. I think they only had horses and then Buckley, obviously the dog. But
yeah,
again, it's like how you mentioned, it makes the whole town seem more alive. Even having movie nights and stuff. So many kids running around as well. A lot more kids than I think. Like there was a little group of kids that in part two that you see, but I think that's the extent of it. And so
yeah.
there's a lot of kids in that movie room, it, setting up the part two stuff and how they're all going to grow up very, very well.
Exactly. Another scene I want to touch on is we kind of jumped past it when Joel and Ellie set up camp. We can talk a little bit about the more emotional stuff they talk about, but also the funny stuff because she asks him, she says, like, what are you gonna do after all this? He's like, oh, I'll probably have a farm with sheep because they're quiet and they do what they're told. I don't know why that had me just cracking up because Ellie just sits there and she's like, ha ha. And then obviously they get to Jackson and see the sheep there, and they see Baby Shimmer, and
That didn't click for
yeah,
dude. I
that didn't
actually
click for me
missed so
either.
many references in this show, in this
Yeah,
episode. I was mad at myself for how many I missed. Because even at that fire, before they get to Jackson, um, the dream that Joel says that he wants at that time isn't his real dream. We find out later in the episode he wanted to be a singer. Um, but
has a lot of
actually,
implications.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
we'll
yeah,
save that.
that's all I'll say. I'll save that for the spoiler section at the end. So, but
But
yeah, I
yeah,
didn't catch that.
even that, and
I didn't catch that.
Ellie talking about astronauts and space and everything
That one,
hit
yeah, that one is hard
hit
to miss, I guess.
hit super hard. Yeah, that one's hard to miss, but um, there's a couple moments like that kind of got me. I feel like that campfire scene that them two had, it was great. And then obviously Joel's getting anxiety attacks, which we'll touch on that later for sure. Um, also, last thing, and then we'll get past this. The couple scene, I did like how he said, "Your answer better be the same as your wife's." Like point on this
Yeah,
map. I was like, okay, Joel, it's not the
yeah,
extent that we're used to seeing it, but like, I'm glad
and we
we're
still
getting
might
it.
see it, um, with the David episode,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and we
exactly,
still might see the whole thing.
exactly. So I just thought it was fun. There's a couple things that they set up very well, but we could, still see it in these next of the rabbit and the point to the map situation.
Yeah,
And so yeah, this whole like first 20 minutes, 15 minutes with Joel and Ellie just bonding. How can you not love it, you know?
yep. It's them building their relationship very, very well, and it leads into the argument in the house later in this episode very, very well as well. Um,
Yeah.
so jumping to when they were ran up on by all the Jackson people. Um, I was really interesting to have the oh wait, no, actually before we do that, sorry. Um, I want to talk about the build up to the well, not to his anxiety attacks, because he had one previously before the fireplace scene, or the campfire scene. But he says, I'll stay up and do both watches. You can catch
Mhm.
some sleep. And he falls asleep, and she's the one standing there with the gun on watch. It's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, how do you slip up like that? You know, like you're sitting there
Yeah.
watching that moment, like, dude, that's huge. Like, why? That's your job, and like you literally were asleep on the job, and
Yeah.
they touch on that very, very well later on, and we'll get to that as well. But I just love that. I love the sort of and I've talked about this many times. How he's showing his age. He's getting old. He's tired. You know, that kind of thing. And he's
Yeah.
just not as alert and spry as he used to be. And they're playing into that very, very well for this adaptation.
Yeah. It adds a lot to Joel, and I'm gonna touch on it a lot too in the spoiler section because I posted a video about it. But it's just stuff like this that I love so much. These added little extra details. I think someone pointed out that Joel had some anxiety medicine on his counter in part two, and they never really touched on it. And so this time, they're fleshing it out a lot more. And I just love it, dude. It does so much for his character. It does so much for like scenes that we're gonna see in the future. And I can't get enough of it. I love a character building. I love character studies, just touching on these people and showing where they start, where they end, and this is just doing it for me 1,000%.
Seriously. Um, but now jumping ahead to when the Jackson guys roll up on them, having Buckley be able to sniff out if you're infected or not is interesting. And so it leads me to believe, um, leads me to wonder, like, why couldn't Buckley smell it on Ellie? Um, considering and they talked about this in the podcast as well, for the show. Considering that the actual scanning device, when Ellie is scanned, she comes up as infected, but Buckley can't smell that she's infected. So I wonder what and I doubt they're ever going to touch on this again, but I just wonder what the kind of smell is for Buckley to be able to determine that, because maybe it's like the rotting mushroom flesh smell. I don't know. I don't even know, but I actually, and it didn't even click in my head that this was Buckley in this scene as well from the game. I missed so many references in this episode. I
Yeah, don't
can't
worry, I
believe it.
did too. Um, yeah, I was wondering that also. I was like, how are they gonna get out of this dude? Which again, great, great building tension right there. I was just like, man, this is it. This is it. Something's gonna go crazy. I know they're gonna end up in Jackson regardless, but like, something's gonna happen, and it's not gonna be pretty. And so, um, I was wondering that too. I have no idea, but it was nice to see Ellie playing with a little dog.
Yeah. And this is something they talked about in the podcast as well. Um, and it's building into his anxiety even more as well. This scene, they're surrounded by guys, and then Joel's sitting there thinking exactly what I was mentioning, that the scanner can tell when Ellie's infected. So why wouldn't this dog be able to if they say that this dog can tell? And so Joel is worried that this dog is about to rip Ellie apart, and they're surrounded by dudes, and he just freezes. He just can't do anything. But the reality of it is that, like, he couldn't have done anything. Like, there's nothing for him to do in that situation. He just has to sit there and wait. No matter what he does, if he makes any sort of move, he's going to get shot by one of the 15 people around him. But it's just that sort of protector nature in him where he feels like he needs to be able to, even in a situation where he knows that it would be a dumb decision to do anything. He just needs to know that if he had an opportunity, he would be able to act on that opportunity. And so, and clearly at this point in time, he doesn't. He can't. And so
Yeah,
it's great characterization for Joel. Seriously.
yeah. I can't wait to touch on all of that later once we get into not only the end of the episode but the spoiler zone.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, Tommy and Joel reunite. I mean, this scene right here where they're all having lunch, I loved it so much, dude. Tommy and Maria just sitting there staring at Ellie. they, they just have these looks on their face, dude, where they're just kind of like, okay, yeah. And she's just, ow. She's like, holy fuck. And she's just cussing her ass off. I thought it was great, dude. I thought it was so funny. And then you can touch on that a little bit more if you want, and we can get into the big juicy stuff.
Yeah. I love Tommy and Tommy and Joel reuniting. I love the way that Joel shouted Tommy. Like, I don't know. I love that they aren't estranged in this adaptation, because in the game they very much left off with each other on bad terms. And there's elements of that still here in the show, but for the most part, they just kind of fell out of touch because Tommy got involved with everyone here in Jackson. And I love how speaking of that, I love how they sprinkled little breadcrumbs of like, we have to stay off the radios so people don't know that this town exists and that kind of thing. But it was such a heartwarming welcome as opposed to the game. And they touched on this in the podcast as well. They cuts to Ellie as they're hugging, and Ellie's looking at them, and Ellie has this sort of look on her face, like, of jealousy. Like, and they said specifically in the podcast that, like, she's thinking, well, that's my dad. He's mine. Or not my dad specifically, but he's mine.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to share him with someone else. And like,
Aww,
that is crazy. That's like, I
that's
didn't
sweet,
even
dude.
pick up on that.
Wow.
But I love that.
That's sweet. See, because the way I interpreted it was she was looking at Joel and she kind of felt like happy for him. With that look on her face, I thought she was kind of like, oh man, like look at Joel crying and showing emotion and like being happy. She hasn't got to see that a lot. And look at him embrace his brother. Like that's very sweet. And I was interpreting it like that, not so much of like hey, watch out. Like that's my protector and that's not yours. We're staying here and we're staying together. Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. But
Especially
as for the actual
considering everything, I was gonna say, especially considering their talk in the house and how Joel wants to end up getting rid of her. That scene makes a lot more sense. But yeah, continue.
But yeah, just the the cafeteria scene, just watching both of them just digging in like crazy. Again, just leaning into the comedy of oh, they even got pie. I didn't even realize they
Yeah, the
got
pumpkin pie. I just saw that right now.
For audio listeners, don't worry, we don't have anything up on the screen. We're just watching it ourselves. But no, yeah, this entire section, I think, it's it speaks well into the realistic aspect of the show, like how long they've been out on the road eating rabbits, small little rabbits, barely any food, and then they're just scarfing as much food down as possible. And then Ellie looks at the girl and says, "What,
dude?"
I didn't even catch that. Joel was like, "What's wrong with you?" It's so funny to me. What's wrong with you,
bro? The way she just screams like out of nowhere, like, what is wrong with you? Like, what do you do? And she's just like, what? And then we get our girl, Dina.
That didn't, because the reason it didn't click for me, and guys, for anybody who hasn't played part 2, this is semi spoilery for a character that's going to show up in part 2 in season 2 of the show. So we're not gonna what that character gets
Jackson.
What that character gets up to in the game, we're not going to talk about that till the very, if there's even room to talk about anything she does, we'll talk about it at the end of the episode. But as her as a character, she is in part 2, and so that's why most of the Last of Us fans were freaking out this week, having caught her. I didn't think it was her, just because this girl looks rather old to me, because Dina and Ellie are supposed to be the same age, and this girl in the show looks, to me at least, like she's, I don't know, 16, 17, something like that, and Ellie's like 14, and so it just doesn't quite line up to me. But I believe it was confirmed. Neil Druckmann took a screenshot of Dina trending on Twitter after the episode came out and said, like, you guys are hilarious and whatnot, and everybody found like the actress that had been cast as Dina. So that's that's really, really cool. This is something that we've theorized about later on, and even There's still a character that we hope might show up at the end of the season, and we'll talk about that in the spoiler section if there's time for it. But yeah, we were hoping that there was going to be like little breadcrumbs, because this is what I'm enjoying about the show the most so far, me personally. As someone, I avidly love The Last of Us Part 2. I think I like it more than the first game for me myself. And so I love that they're building this show around The Last of Us Part 2 and knowing where The Last of Us Part 2 leads and knowing everything that's going to be involved with it, because I think it's an opportunity to flesh out the characters in those certain aspects a lot more than part one did, because they just made part one, the game originally, just thinking about part one, had no
Yeah.
inclination of where part two might lead them. But now with the idea of part two in their heads, they can craft Ellie a different way, craft Joel a different way, give us slight little nods to different characters that we might see in the future, and that's what
Yeah.
I think I'm loving the most about this show. Is getting to see those little things and those little changes, and I think they're executing those changes really, really well. And there's actually one little thing that I've been thinking about lately when it comes to Ellie, and I'll talk about. I definitely want to talk about that in the spoiler section at the end of this episode.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah, I that's what I meant to say last week. I was listening to our last episode. Yes, the same way Scott Lang listens to his books, I listen to my own podcast. And who cares? No, but I was listening to that one with, I want to say, Henry and no, maybe it was just last week's episode. Wait, what? Last week's was Henry's? Yeah, because we had that early showing, um, or the early release. So yes, it was Henry and Sam's, and that's what I meant to say. Like they made the game with just the game in mind, and now to see them kind of like this is why I love adaptations, and this is why I disagree with everyone saying, "Oh, but Bill and Frank, we got to see a bloater in the game." Like, who cares, bro? Like, shut up. You want to play the game? You want to see Bill and Ellie go at it and her cook them? Like, go play the game. But with these adaptations, like especially a season one, when you have like two really good games, you get to, like you said, you get to go in there and you get to build these characters up with their start and their end, their complete end in mind, and the only reason I could see them changing it up even more is if they make a Last of Us Part 3, if they make a part 3 for the game. um but yeah, I think it's perfect, and I think that's why I love these adaptations. I think this is why, especially with episode 3, that um you shouldn't be scared to drift too far out of your comfort zone or too far out story wise. And that's why I love episode 3 so much. And even this one, like a lot of the stuff they changed in this one, like you said, the dam, like just not even stopping at the dam, just going straight to Jackson. It made for so much more in this episode, and I loved it. And that's exactly why I love everything they're doing with like building this season around, in a way, season two, um, or building this season with season two in mind.
Yeah. um Completely agree. And there's something I'm gonna talk about later on when we get to that section. And it's not spoiler for the spoilery. Actually, it is spoiler for the future. So I'll save it for the spoiler section. I was gonna talk about it when it came up in the show, but it is spoiler for the future. So I'll talk about it at the end. It has to do with Tommy. Um, but continuing on here, I love the little thing where Joel and Maria are very much at odds as they're eating here, and Joel tries to get her out of the situation um, by saying like, "Hey, let's just can we have just a moment for family here for a second?" And then Tommy's like, "Well, actually, this is family now." And so Joel, I love it just because it speaks to how much Tommy has moved on from Joel and from his sort of protector role. Um, and Joel says it as soon as they meet each other again outside. Tommy asks him what he's doing here, and Joel says, "I'm here to save you." Because Joel, very much in his eyes, needs to protect everybody around him best he can. Doing a shit job with Sarah and Tess though. Um,
Yeah.
he needs to protect everybody he can, and so watching someone who he was previously protecting thriving in their life, showing they don't really need that protection and meeting other people and moving on in a way.
Yeah.
That's gotta hurt his ego a little bit
Yeah.
or
I
his sense of
even
purpose.
yeah, I even like when Tommy tells him, Joel, just because your life stopped doesn't mean mine had to. I was like,
That's a yeah,
whoa.
that's a screwed up thing to say, but yeah, it was a
But it's a
yeah,
bar. It's a
yeah,
bar nonetheless.
yeah.
um, no, yeah, I absolutely loved that moment with them. I thought that was such a great line that Tommy could drop on him. Um, even though, like it is messed up in Joel's eyes, uh, I kind of see where Tommy's coming from, and like Joel, you're there now. Just stop, just sit down, and just enjoy Jackson. Just live the rest of your life out here. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Just drop it and chill out. Um, but of course, Joel doesn't, and so yeah, I love this little piece of dialogue between both of them, just going at it, and Joel just taking the liquor and just pouring himself another one, um, and even just avoiding talking about Tess um, with Tommy.
Yeah, he
I thought it
was
was
talking about everything. That's what
yeah,
was shocking to me about this scene. He withheld every bit of information he could
yeah,
from Tommy.
which is very sad, bro. Very sad.
Yeah. It was I was wondering why he even did that. And I listened to the podcast and maybe I just didn't listen fully, but I don't think they touched on the fact on why he was holding back all this information from Tommy, his own brother. Like it felt very jarring to me and it was very confusing as to why he didn't want to tell Tommy all these little things. Um,
Yeah,
but they made up for it later on. Here soon, we'll get to that scene.
yeah. And then after this, oh man, one of the hardest hidden scenes we've gotten so far. Joel walks out and he gets a glimpse of what he thinks is Sarah,
Dude.
and he
Yeah.
starts to break down again. Just so painful, dude.
Oh my god, man! I as soon as I saw the hair, bro, I was like, oh my god, man, because he's already started having a another panic attack.
Yeah.
And then he looks over and he sees a girl with similar hair. And then yeah, they talked about this in the podcast as well. To see someone who he thought looked like Sarah just from behind, and then seeing the little girl run up to her, and like that could have been my granddaughter,
Mm,
um, that could have been the life that I had if I had done my protector job to the full length of my ability. I guess I don't know. Maybe he's still beating himself up for it. But then the girl turns, sees that it's not Sarah, and he um, beats
I
himself up for even looking at a situation like that. Like still thinking about it after 20 years. It's crazy.
yeah. I also kind of like to think that after that, after seeing that, obviously, and after having that breakdown, I just love that right after that he decides to go talk to Tommy, or that he decides to just spill it all out to Tommy. I think that's just so great. It's just so well done. It shows that he's just like, no matter how hard he tries to keep it in and keep it flushed down, he's just got to he has to talk about it to somebody. And Tommy just so happens to enter the room, and he lets it out on him. Um, it was such a good scene, dude. As soon as I saw the curly hair, I was like, oh no. I was like, shit, Joel, come on, man.
Um, and then we cut to Ellie walking in after having a shower. It looks like, and Maria left out all these things on the bed for her. Classic hoodie from the game. The little pink, white, and I think gray.
Yes,
Is that what
she
it
has
is?
her purple fucking eggplant coat, like I was about to say Marlene, like Maria likes to say.
um, and this is the second time they've touched on this in the show. But Maria gives her menstrual cups as well for her,
That was
for her
so funny,
period.
dude.
And because I think it was episode 3 where she found like tampons or something in the
Yeah.
minute market thing or something like that. And so, and they talk about it in the podcast too. It's like hardly any post-apocalyptic zombie show touches on like this aspect of women's lives. And so
Yeah.
and that's true. It's a really good point. Um,
Yeah. I thought it was funny how she was like folding it and just like pop, and it popped back in place, and then she tells Maria it was a weird gift. It's so funny.
Dang, bro. I'm just now looking at the little chalkboard that they have above the
Yeah.
mantle with Kevin and Sarah. I didn't look at the time frame for Kevin. He was only 3. He was 3 years old, man.
Ooh,
Maria's son. That's crazy. Oh my
that is
god. Okay.
rough. Yeah.
Um, and Sarah. Okay, Sarah was 14. It looks like
Oh, and so yeah, so it looks like Kevin survived 2 days longer than
than
Sarah.
Sarah. Yeah.
Weird, man.
Dang.
That's tough.
That's and that the whole idea of kids is gonna um go into what I want to talk about in the spoiler section at the end of this episode. Not specifically Kevin and Sarah, but um Tommy and Maria's kid. Um,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
super
Yeah.
fucking purple.
Yeah. I love this conversation here with Sarah and Maria, because damn, when she drops that ball on her and she's like, Sarah was Joel's, and Ellie's just like, I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
because we
dude.
see that in the game. Like that's a completely off screen kind of thing. And so
Yeah. I
I
was
saw
like,
someone on
oh,
TikTok say that they think that that it didn't flow naturally, that scene. They thought it was very contrived. The whole scene with Maria and Ellie. But I mean Ellie said like I'm sorry about your kids. And I imagine it's information that Maria's never thought she had to hide before. You know, like she never
yeah,
had to hide that Sarah wasn't her daughter, you know. Sarah is Tommy's niece. And so I mean,
yeah,
granted, she didn't
exactly.
explain it to Ellie like that. She said that's Joel's daughter. Um, but still, Maria just corrected her in my eyes. That's what like, and just kid. Kevin was mine. Sarah was Joel's. Like that was it very didn't seem like it was forced at all to me. But I mean, to each their own, I guess. Um, but no, yeah, like you're saying, just to see that hit her like that,
Yeah,
like she
dude.
just completely stares into blank space.
That realization, I was like, ooh. Um, I bet you so much is just running through Ellie's mind right there. Because
Yeah,
after that, they go to the movie, and then she immediately, or like not immediately, but she ends up walking out, and she's like, "Nah, I'm gonna go find Joel." And I was like, oh man. And then just to hear what she heard, it just all plays together so well. I don't think that was contrived at all.
yeah,
I love this scene. I have no complaints with it. And then Maria drops, dude, a bar. She drops an absolute bar. I forget exactly what she says. I have it in my notes here. She says, the only people that can betray us are the ones that we trust. Damn. Talk about like just building up a fucking story, bro. So good, man. Just so good. And it's
that's
just,
true.
and it's such a true line also. I mean, think about it. You're not betrayed by people that you expect it from. You're betrayed by the people that you trust.
True.
And she thinks that Joel will betray her, I guess, if that's what she's alluding to. But, just her telling her, Maria telling Ellie about like, you do know what Joel did, right? And she's like, all right, well, Tommy did it too. And like,
Yeah, that's
I'm
yeah.
what makes you think I'm not smarter than Tommy? I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was very strange to me how much of a problem Maria has with Joel. I guess it's just like she looks at Joel as like the reason Tommy got into all those things, maybe. And so, and since they're married, she just has a sort of resentment towards Joel. I'm not sure. Um,
Yeah.
she
I
definitely
could
views
I can
herself
put my finger on it.
as above Joel.
Yeah. Yeah. Which just it just sets up so much. It just adds so much. And I love it, dude. I can't can't not keep saying it, because I
Yeah.
do.
Um, But then we get to the movie, and this is what I meant by just like look at all these kids. It's just
Yeah.
a gigantic crowd of kids in the audience here. And granted, again, audio listeners, if we don't have anything up, I'm just talking about what I see. But also, I didn't catch this, but I was literally looking for any children because I didn't think that that was Dina at the time. I was looking for any children that looked like Dina and Jesse, and the guy that is I think either right next to Ellie or two chairs over from Ellie
I see him. I see him.
in the green hoodie. That kind of
Yeah.
looks like that could be Jesse. And I feel like that works better because Jesse to me is a little bit older than Ellie and Dina. Like he's
Yeah.
probably like 1 to 2 years older than them. And so I can see this guy looks like he could be playing Jesse to me. But I'm just a stickler when it comes to the ages, I guess. Um, but that's
I
not confirmed or anything like that. That's just me guessing.
Yeah, I saw that too. I saw someone had mentioned something about seeing Jesse, and I had never went back to go. I had never went back to go look at it or to like kind of see, oh, who are they talking about? And so looking at it right now, as soon as you started saying who it was, I was like, oh yeah, that does kind of look like him.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
But
be
then we get
surprised.
no, yeah, that's I hope it is. I really do. I mean, obviously we probably won't find out until like maybe the last episode, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Um, but then we get to the damn scene of the show. Well, maybe not the damn scene of the. I was gonna say the damn scene of the episode, but there's lots of good
a
scenes
ton.
in
Yeah,
this episode. But I love this one so much because this speaks to the different characterization for Joel in the show rather than the game. Um, I've seen some people have some complaints, like people who've played the game mainly, that it just doesn't seem like Joel is articulating his thoughts too much here. Like it just doesn't seem like in character for him. Um, which I could see that to a certain degree, but I mean, I feel like that's doing a disservice to Joel almost. It's not like Joel Joel's an idiot. He has a rather large vocabulary. I mean, he's just honest about the things that he doesn't understand. Like even earlier in this episode, when they stop at the dam for a second, he's like, "Don't even ask me because I have no idea." like, like,
yeah,
I mean, he is rather straight to the point. I'll agree with that, and maybe this seems a little bit more. This whole conversation seems a little bit more widespread and deep than to the point. But that's the thing. Like this is him being vulnerable. This is him
yeah,
outside of his regular state of mind. And so he's pleading to his brother. Like, when have we ever seen Joel do anything like that to anyone so far?
yeah,
Other than when Sarah was dying right in front of him, you know? And so this scene for me works fantastically for Joel on many levels, mostly because of where I know he's going to go.
hmm
And I think this scene is the
it brings that home.
the perfect sort of antithesis, if I'm using that word correctly.
I didn't
Um,
even know that was a word to begin with.
um, the perfect antithesis for where he will end up, and I
Yeah.
love it so much, dude. Because in the Joel in the game, we never see Joel be so unsure of himself because like we are Joel in the game, and like we know I know I'm gonna run around, I'm gonna whoop some ass. I ain't letting nothing touch Ellie when I'm playing as Joel. But
Yeah.
this Joel, we're completely not completely
Removed.
detached from. We're
Yeah. Oh,
removed as a
yeah.
sort of player. Um,
Yeah.
and so we get to watch and we get to watch him be an old man and slowly start to decline on his athletic ability. And he even mentions in this conversation, 5 years ago, I would have destroyed him, talking about the guy from Kansas City, which I loved that line. I love that he said destroyed
Yeah.
him. 5 years ago, I would have destroyed him. And so this is perfectly setting up like how he feels like a failure. And we've seen how he feels like a failure. And a lot of people are saying like they feel like they're beating us over the head with this sort of thing. But I've only seen people that say that are the people that have played the game. The people that have played the game feel like that we're being beat over the head with all this, oh, Joel has failed as a protector. Joel needs to do better. Joel needs to do this, yada. It feels like that because you've seen it 20 times already that Joel failed as a protector with Sarah. Joel failed as a protector with Tess. Like you've seen it, you know it, you know this whole entire story. Of course, you're going to think that they're beating us over the head with it. Someone who has not watched the show, they're looking at Joel absolutely destroyed by the fact that he has failed on multiple occasions. He's failing Ellie, falling asleep, having to have her shoot this guy in the back and paralyze him a couple episodes ago. And then most not most recently, because I already said the fire, but then with Henry had the gun and shot at Joel's feet, and Joel just kind of stood there, didn't really do anything. Even in, and I love it. I actually, speaking about that, I know I'm going a million miles a minute, but speaking about that scene specifically in the game, that scene where Henry shoots at the ground in front of Joel. Joel stops for a second and he's like, Henry's like, that's my brother. And then Joel stands there. He's like, screw it. And he goes for the gun anyway, goes for his other gun anyway. In the show, Joel doesn't do that. Joel
Yeah.
gets shot at his feet. He stops immediately. He just like, Henry, please give me the gun. That's all he does. And I love that's the difference. That shows how paralyzed Joel feels in his old age and his ability to protect people. And I love that so much. And that I can't believe I didn't talk about it last week, because that is such a big change from that episode and from the character as a whole, because he still tries. He's like, screw it, I might get shot by Henry, but I need to protect Ellie. I care about Ellie. And
Yeah.
so I love I could talk about that all day, man. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with it. Just Joel pouring his emotions out, talking about how he's old, he's too old, and he's too effing deaf to keep doing it. And it's sad, dude. And he even starts to well up and cry. And I mean, dude, Pedro Pascal, dude, solidified his Emmy with this episode. It was just incredible TV. It was an incredible scene. And I think it's probably and I said this in my TikTok as well. I say this every week, but I think this is going to be one of the most important scenes of this season. One of the most important moments that happens for Joel in this whole entire show. Um, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking seeing him go through that. It's sad seeing him finally having to admit that to someone, and because he's finally having to say that out loud, it's bringing him to tears. And just knowing how much that it's bugging him that he can't protect Ellie, it says a lot about their relationship and about what they've been going through. I love that scene so much.
Seriously, I was in awe watching this for the first time. I couldn't believe they were even doing it, because
Yeah.
it's such a departure. And I honestly thought I was gonna see a lot more hate for this, because like seeing Joel be so vulnerable and almost like a baby. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I thought they were gonna like, oh, they're demasculating my favorite character. I thought I was gonna see a lot more of that, bro. To be honest, but I'm
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised. I haven't seen anything like that. My one complaint about this scene is that it's not shown, but it's implied to us later that Ellie was watching them
Yeah.
have that conversation. I wish that they had shown us that Ellie was watching. Like they show us her walking outside, but then that's the only thing that we see. It's a very small thing, almost nitpicky, because it doesn't really matter. Like I'm able to pick up on the fact that she was listening, but I just wish that it was more clear that she was listening. Because to me, at the beginning of this scene, especially if I hadn't played the game, Joel walks into the room, and then Ellie's just being distant and cold for no reason, and it just makes no sense. But if they had showed us that she was watching and listening, and how Joel wants to offload her to his brother, then I think that would make a lot more sense.
See, I loved it. I liked the way they did it a lot, actually. Just starting off with Ellie walking in, and all you hear, you go from like the movie and how loud the movie is, the background noise, to just wind. And every time I just hear that wind, I get like PTSD from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Like just that silent wind, and that's all. You hear that wind, and you hear Joel talking, and then Ellie's just like walking around, probably looking for Joel, and then we don't ever cut back. We just go through that conversation, but the whole time you're like, holy shit, is Ellie listening to this? You know, she's walking around, looking around. I can see how some people could have been like, oh, she's just walking around. Okay, we don't see her no more. And I guess us, because we have played the games, and people who have played the games, they know obviously Ellie is listening, because how else are we going to get to that scene? And so maybe it's because we have different viewpoints on it. I would have been interested to see how Ben had taken it, or like, just because we talked to him after every episode.
Yeah.
But he hates coming on the podcast, so it's
Seriously, bro. He's always busy. Busy man.
uh, so maybe just because I have a different perspective since I've played the games, I liked it. I liked it because the whole time I knew Ellie was listening. And because we don't cut back to it and they walk outside and Ellie isn't there, you're like, oh shit, dude, she heard and she's in her room, you know?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why I liked it so much. So I'd be interested to see how people that haven't played the game took that scene. I can see why, though. I can see why, but I loved it a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, then we get to this actual scene, and we talked about it a little bit at the beginning. I don't think they did it quite as well as the game, or better than the game, I guess I should say. But definitely on par. I think like they did it in their own special way. And I said this in my TikTok review of the episode. Bella Ramsey, bro, the way that they convey certain words and the way that I haven't been able to find the right word to describe this, but I think it's um they change their inflection towards like the end of the word, and like I don't know, it's a very minor thing that I love so much. Like it adds so much more to the scene for me. It's right when she says everybody effing is except for you. Um I think. Hold on. I'm gonna watch the scene right now. Hold on. Yeah, the way she says "you," the way her voice sort of like falls apart and cracks at the end there. Oh my god, man, I love that so much. And it was a very obviously it's a very. I imagine this scene was especially was like a very hard scene to go into, especially if you know how that scene was changed already by the original actors themselves. Like Ashley, the whole push thing, like you probably know, the whole
Yeah.
pushing Troy thing, that was completely Ashley Johnson did that on her own. And so I was wondering if they were even going to do that, because I know they didn't have them play the game specifically because they wanted them to have their own interpretation of everything and have their own sort of excuse me, their own viewpoint and their own way of going into it. And so I was wondering if that push was even going to be included, because it's very much a Ashley Johnson thing. That was Ashley's um, input into the character of Ellie in that moment. And so I was
Yeah.
wondering if they would even have Bella do that. But they did, and they did it really, really well. um, but even beyond that, I agree with what you said at the beginning. I wish he would have said, Ellie, you are treading on some mighty thin ice here. They talk about it in the podcast. I can't remember what they said exactly, but it was something like that just doesn't work for this Joel. This Joel isn't so I think they tied it back to like his southern accent. Like he doesn't talk in such a southern manner like that, even though he is from Texas. Uh it just didn't speak to this version of Joel, I guess. And so they knew that that was an iconic line, though. That was one of the iconic lines from that scene. But Pedro just didn't want to fit that in there like that. I don't know. I'd have to re-listen to the podcast, but yeah, I agree. That was a scene I really wanted. But I also one of my, or not a scene, a line that I really wanted. One of my favorite lines from this whole scene though is when he says, "You're right. You're not my daughter, and I sure as hell ain't your dad." I'm super glad that was included. If that wasn't included, then I probably would have been rather upset. But I love that that was actually in there.
It's such a great scene, dude. And even when Joel, I think in the game, I think Joel does something with his head where he turns it like that, and he's looking at her like with his head tilted up, and Joel does that as well. and he says don't, and he picks his face up like that. He's like, don't say another word.
Mhm.
And so I just love all that. Like I was so like ready for this scene to come up. Like it's posted all over TikTok. Like people, that's like a quintessential moment in Joel and Ellie's like relationship. And so people, when the show started popping off, like episode 1 and 2, people were posting that scene everywhere, and it did not fail to deliver, bro. As soon as she says, everyone I have cared for has either died or left me, and then she screams and does that push, I was losing it, dude. I was like, fuck, this is so good. And again, like Bella Ramsey continues to add even more to the character. Like when she says everyone fucking except for you, and her voice is trembling, and even like the whole Sam and Henry thing, like when she screams seeing Henry take his life, so much things that she's just adding
Yep.
on.
Yep.
And she's visibly tearing up and like about to cry, on the verge of tears in this one. In the game, and granted this could just be because it's a game, like it's a animated character, it doesn't seem like Ellie is like on the like about to like cry. Like she is teared up, and her voice is like trembling, but like seeing it on Bella Ramsey, I don't know, it just adds so much more to it. And I could appreciate that so much. It was just such a great scene. I loved it.
Um, I think um I think in the remake of the game, uh they actually made Ellie cry, like full on there's tears running down her face.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly. But in the original game, no, yeah, I think it was just tears in her eyes. If even that, there might not have been because it was PS3 technology. So
Yeah. They're like, we can't add tears right now. We don't know how to add
we
tears yet.
can't add tears. Yeah, I think a tear runs down her face. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's PS5 technology for you, baby.
Well,
Just like
scratch
that.
everything I said. No, but my point still stands. Seeing it in live action, just like it made it hit even harder. Like seeing it on an
Yeah,
actual person, actual like actor. Oh,
definitely
it
agree.
was, it was
Especially
sad.
again for me, just like the voice cracking and breaking for me was spectacular.
Yeah.
Um, then we follow Joel to his bedroom, sits down, and he starts thinking about Sarah. And this is another one of those things I've seen people saying like they're beating us over the head with it, with the Sarah thing. Like they don't need to show us the scenes of Sarah. Like
Yeah.
we know what we can suspect what he's thinking about,
Yeah.
and I can agree. This one I actually I can more agree with, um, and because I had a problem with flashbacks, I think we talked about at the end of the first episode. Like I didn't need the flashback to the flashlight in front of his face, especially because it was the same episode. Um,
Yeah.
and so I feel like this is kind of like that element for me a little bit. Like especially earlier in this episode, he already saw a girl that looked like Sarah, and we picked up on that as an audience. So with him sitting there looking off in the distance, like we're going to imagine what he's thinking about Sarah and thinking about Ellie's connection to uh his view of Sarah and how he views Ellie now, so I can agree. I don't think it hurts it again. Like it's not really I don't think it doesn't take away anything from the moment for me, but I can agree that it wasn't really needed.
Yeah, I felt that way too. And as soon as they showed that scene, I actually thought back to what you had said episode 1. You were like, we just kind of don't need to see the flashbacks. Like we get it. We know what he's thinking about.
Yeah.
I had thought back to that moment, and I was like, but I mean, I guess like there's a lot of people that haven't played the game. There's a lot of people that, but
Yeah.
but then again, it's like, well, he just, we just saw Sarah, or we just saw Joel react to seeing someone like Sarah. I'm pretty sure we could pick up on him
Yeah.
thinking about her in that moment. I don't
Exactly.
know. I'm trying to look at both sides of it, but yeah, wasn't really needed.
Then we cut to morning and Ellie is sat waiting, ready to go. And I love this because to me, the way I took this a little bit, as soon as Tommy opens the door after she says come in, she has this moment where she sits there for a second. like she was still hoping that Joel was going to be the one to walk in.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, bro, fuck you, Joel. You're letting her down, dog. What is wrong with you, bro?
Yeah, dude.
I loved that a lot. This is sort of while I'm watching her and Tommy, it's sort of like the beginning of their relationship again. Like they're just so distant. Or the beginning of Joel and Ellie's relationship. Like Ellie is keeping her distance from Tommy, and Tommy's just like minding his own. He's just like, hey, we're walking over here. Like,
Yeah.
just shut up and let's go.
Did you
But
this is kind of off topic, but did you see like all the I know you saw the one with the camera crew on the bridge.
yeah,
Did you see that there's a visible hand when she's petting Shimmer? There's a hand like right behind the stall, and
really?
it's like right there in frame. And it's so funny.
Damn.
I
Two
was
in
like,
one episode.
hey, y'all, turn y'all's eyes away.
Turn
Turn the
y'all's
left
eyes
cheek on
away.
that. I don't want to hear nothing about that.
Exactly, bro. We don't need to be
but
pointing out all these flaws.
but you had just brought up the horse scene, and so I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, there's like fingers right under Shimmer's chin. You can see it's so visible.
That's so funny.
I'm like, hey, I didn't see nothing. We don't have to mention it.
One one thing that they talked about in the podcast as well, this scene when they walk up and it's Joel there. Joel says like 30 minutes ago he was about to just take a horse and leave. He was going to run away. He's going to steal a horse. It ties into last night, and the way he is thinking about Sarah and thinking about Ellie, and the way he views Ellie now. And he was trying to run away from that because he didn't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
We've talked about it multiple times in all these episodes, how he doesn't want that to feel that kind of pain again. And so he was trying to run away, especially from even having to see Ellie before she goes. But then he sat there for 30 minutes and then realized he can't do that. And they said specifically when he says to her, like, I was thinking about it, you deserve a choice. And I also love that Ellie just instantly doesn't even think about it, just like pack up the horse. But they said in the podcast that him saying that you deserve a choice, that's a complete cop out. Like he wants to go with her. He wants her to choose him.
Yeah.
But he's just saying that to try to sort of save face. And
Yeah.
I love that a lot.
I will say I was really hoping, again, it's little, but I was really hoping he'd look back to Ellie and be like, "You good?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm good." I was so
Yes.
hoping for it because I just love that moment because you can just see it on Ellie's face even when he's like, "Ah, I figured I'd take this one here for myself, and you know, we'll go." Basically saying, I'm gonna take Ellie with me. I've made up my mind, and you can see like on her face, like she's like surprised and she's like, oh shit, all right, bet. And so I was really hoping he'd look back at her and be like, "You good?" "Yeah, I'm good." But
Just the little things.
I love the look that Tommy gives her, or Tommy gives Joel. Oh,
Yeah.
Gabriel Luna, bro. I'm about to tear up just like the way he just looks at him and he nods his head because he knows like
Gabriel Luna is so damn good, bro. You're
he's
right, bro.
confident in Joel, bro. He's confident in Joel, and he's like, I knew that you knew that you can do this. Like this little girl obviously means something to you, um, and you basically trying to get out of it just because of everything with Sarah and Tess and whatnot. Um, that's a cheap way to go. If I knew that you had it in you, and seeing you come to terms with that and seeing you realize that he says all of that with just one look, and it's so damn good the way he just nods his head at him and he's like, all right. And Joel's just sitting there like, I know. So good, man.
I also love the line where he's like, can I borrow that? And then Thomas says yes. He's like, because Maria took mine. He's like, I already said yes, Joel. I love that part where he's like, I already said yes, Joel. Like, you
So
don't need to
good, dude.
convince me anymore.
I love it, bro. I love it so
Because it
much.
just speaks more to their relationship and like how much he understands Joel, and like he doesn't want this to turn into a fight because he knows that like Joel will just keep going, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the line,
Adios, big brother. Oh
nah,
my
dude, not
god, bro.
and not only that, where he looks at him and he says, "There's a place
Adios,
for
big
you
brother.
here, both of y'all." And he
Yeah,
says, "I'm counting on it." Which,
I'm
yeah,
counting on it. Yeah, that's a
I'm
banger.
I'm sure you are, Joel. Um, and then yeah, we get some bonding between them two. Just, bro, when she
The
put her
shooting,
head
yeah.
down on him, not even
Oh,
just that,
dude.
but like
Oh my god. I
I
love
I,
that.
I almost lost it again, dude. I
I
almost lost
loved
it
that,
again.
bro.
It's just so good. She sets her head down, and they're just bonding, and there's a shot. Oh, they're riding away from the camera, so you see their backs, and they're covering the sun, and so you just see like their silhouette, and then there's weeds on the ground, and like the horizon. So damn good,
Yep.
dude. I loved it so much, and it was great. It was great.
Yeah, this whole lead up, the music they're playing too is the music from the end of the game. Um I didn't even pick up on that again. I just
Yeah.
just me being completely enamored with everything I'm seeing on screen. But no, yeah, this music is fantastic. But also the thing that I caught on to was the football conversation
Yeah.
because it's just that's how exactly how it opens as soon as they're walking up to the university in the game.
Yeah.
Exact same conversation as well. I loved it. And just like I had predicted, I posted a video before the episode came out that like they were gonna hit 3 major beats this episode. And we're coming up on the third one now at the university. And this is the main complaint I've seen about this little part, and you talked about it a little bit, is that it felt rushed. And I can agree to a certain extent. The only thing I would say I agree with is I wish that he had fought more Raiders off. Cause like he only they only killed one of David's guys, if you think about it now.
Yeah.
Like that I mean, it's not that big of a deal, I guess. It's still like the fact that they lost one guy, but one of the major things in the game, and this isn't too spoiler guys, don't worry. Major things in the game is that um the reason David is so mad is because of how many people died at the university, how many men that he and that whole group lost. But now Joel just killed one, and then they ran off, and so
Yeah, I was kind of like ho I was kinda wondering if, like, maybe he was gonna get his rifle and pick off the rest, or if maybe Ellie was gonna land some shots, but then nothing happened, and so I was like, "Huh." It's like,
yeah,
"Alright, well," and again, we've seen that they're not afraid to, like, change stuff up. Wait, getting a phone call? We've seen they're not afraid to, like, change stuff up or, like, and if they do, they'll mention why, and so I'm sure we'll see more of that episode 8,
yeah,
um, and so I'm not too worried about it, but I can definitely see how, like
yeah. Because that's my only because the university as a whole is like anybody talking about anything else with it. The university, you just walk around. That's all you're doing. That entire it's mostly gameplay. The entire
yeah,
university. So it's hard to do that and have it not just feel either boring or rust. And so it's like you drag it out where they're walking through the university, maybe listen to an audio log or something. I feel like they hit all the beats. You walked in on the monkeys just like you do in the game. You see the monkeys out in the courtyard like you do in the game, and then Joel gets stabbed, and then Joel
yeah,
dies. It's like that's I mean, what like I don't know what else you want them to cover. I mean, and I saw someone else they like they stitched someone else's video. Um and I don't fully agree with this, but they said like part of the reason that this works so well as an adaptation is that you can just you can get to all the beats that you need to get to. Like you don't need to mess around. You can just get to the really important stuff, which I kind of agree with, but at the same time, I like you, the whole reason behind this is like it's a TV show. You can spend more time with the characters and build those little tiny things up a bit more.
yeah,
And so I feel like it's a give and take and with stuff like that. And in this situation, I really don't see too much of a problem with it. Again, I just wish he would have maybe killed some more raiders, but that doesn't really have to do with it feeling rushed. That's just has to do with future stuff, and we'll touch on that later in future episodes, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I still really love this scene. I love the way that he actually got stabbed. Feels a lot more natural than the video gamey way of falling. I would have loved to
Yeah.
have seen it falling off of 2 stories. I think that would have been sick. But realistically, you're falling 2 stories on your back. You're probably going to slam your head on the concrete, and
Yeah.
if not have internal hemorrhaging or bleeding or whatever the hell it's called, brain bleed, that kind of thing, and probably die. So
Yeah. Yeah,
mm,
I like the way they went about it this episode. I mean, seeing him fall from the top, like, and get the rebar stabbed through him, like, it would have been visually cool to see. But like story wise, you got to think like, would it have made a ton of sense? Like, I know
yeah,
it's true to the game, but like, you can change it up a bit. It's not a sin to change it up and have him get stabbed with the baseball bat. So I liked it a lot more that way. Yeah, I would have liked to see them kind of take it, all three of them out. That way, if David says, wiping out all three of my men, it makes a little bit more sense. But they can easily change it. They can
yeah,
easily change
and
it and make it make sense.
yeah, that's the other thing too. I should say, like, maybe the lines of dialogue are going to be a little bit different. Maybe like David's really pissed about something else. I don't know. We'll see. We got 2 episodes until the David stuff, so, or 1 episode, and then the next episode after that is the David stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah,
But yeah, then they walk through the school, they find the monkeys, and they Joel fights off the one guy. I will also say it was really weird to me. I didn't see how he got stabbed at first. Um, it's very like it just
it's very
it sort of just
quick.
happens. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
really, really quick. Um, he's just fighting that guy, and you don't even see the guy sort of go in. It's not like a very apparent sort of stab. I can see watching it back, I can see when it happens. The dude breaks the bat as soon as Joel grapples with the guy. I'm sure that's when he stabs him, but it's just so nonchalant that
Yeah,
it was hard to tell. But I love that. I love that. I just love watching Joel just like snap the guy's neck. Sounds really morbid, I know, but like, hey, Joel feels like he's not doing a good job as a protector. Right there, there that is. Just grip the
yeah.
man by the neck. Just give him a quick little snap. Move on.
He's like, we're done with this, bro. I changed my mind and I'm taking her with me. Then shit's about to change. I want to actually, I'll save that for the end because I'll talk about it then. But yeah, seeing him do some work on him and get up out of there, great.
Yep. And then we cut away a little bit. Ellie popped some shots off at those guys. Interesting to me, those guys didn't have guns also. Because I think only Ellie was the one that was shooting back, or not shooting back, but shooting at them. And so very peculiar, but I mean, maybe they just didn't think they needed guns going into this situation. Who even knows? We'll probably find out more with the David episode. But we cut away a little bit. They're a little bit far ahead. Ellie looks behind. She says they're not following us anymore. Joel doesn't respond, and Joel falls off the horse. And when Joel falls off the horse, Ellie hops off and she's begging him, pleading him, please get up. I don't know what to do without you. Please. Heartbreaking stuff. Bella Ramsey plays it. I saw someone make fun of this. They were like, the way Bella Ramsey plays this scene, leaning over him, was laughable. What? She
Thought it was
has
phenomenal.
tears in her eyes, or they're literally about to fall from her eyelids. Like, what are you talking? Like, it was great. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
One thing I know people have pointed out that the horse is fake. It's a fake horse. The horse is not moving.
So funny, dude.
It also kind of looks like, from this view, it looks like it has 3 legs to me. I don't. Maybe
Yeah.
the other leg is just covered by the tail, but a lot of production mistakes in this episode. It seems like really
But
funny, but
it's so funny because like I was so captivated in the episode that I didn't notice any three of
yeah,
those huge mistakes. The
exactly.
hand, the production crew, and the horse, I didn't notice any of it at all because I was so captivated. So when I went back, I was like, oh wow. Testament to the show. I didn't notice any of it at all.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't see any of this. I was because obviously in this scene I'm looking at Ellie and Joel. I'm not looking at the horse, looking at
Yeah.
how the horse isn't moving. But also the song that's playing is same song from the end of episode 1, but just a lot more somber version of it.
Oh, that's where I heard it from. Because I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you, because I know I recognized the "I'm taking a ride with my best friend," but I was like, "No, there's definitely like a doon, 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 doon," like, there's definitely a
Yeah.
beat behind it. So, like, I was literally just looking because I wanted to bring it up. I literally just looked it up right now and listened to the original version. I was like, "Boom, that's it." But then I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, I heard it, but where did I hear it from?" So,
Yeah.
oh, nice, dude,
Um
nice.
and the crazy thing about this one, because I was confused by the significance of it, because they talked about it in the first episode of the podcast that that song was going to come back later in the show. And I was confused by the significance of it, and I asked people in my comments on the video that I posted as a review to this episode, and it's probably just like a callback to. It seems like anyway that this is just a callback to the '80s song means trouble, and so this is an '80s song, and they're in trouble. Joel is down for the
Nice.
count, and
Yeah.
so, but also really cool. And people, two, it's shocking to me that two people got this wrong in my comments. They said that this was Neil Druckmann's daughter singing the song. It's not Neil Druckmann's daughter. It's Craig Mazin's daughter singing the song. That sounded weird to me when I read it because I hadn't listened to the podcast yet. They talk about it in the podcast, but when I read it in my comments, I'm pretty sure Neil Druckmann. I don't know how many kids Neil Druckmann has, but I'm pretty sure that, and I don't know their gender either. But I'm pretty sure they're very young, like 5 years old. And I was like, I don't think that's Neil Druckmann's kid. But Craig, the funny thing is, I listened to the podcast and I was like, oh, it was Craig Mazin's kid. Those people were wrong. But then I was scrolling on TikTok, bro. His daughter is on TikTok. His daughter has been making TikToks for like months and months and months, and her name is like Jessica Mazin or something like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I've never seen her before, but it was the TikTok of oh my god, her being like, hey guys, if you watch the new episode of The Last of Us, if you hear that voice, that's me. Yeah, that's actually me singing it. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. That is super
Wow.
wild. Um, no, yeah, that was she's like 19 years old or something like that. And Craig Mazin talked about on the podcast how like he asked her if she could do a somber version of this song, and then he gave it like 2 weeks. And then he asked her, he's like, "Where's my song?" And then she's like, "Oh, I forgot." she didn't work on it for 2 weeks. He's like, "Okay, I'm trying to put your voice on HBO. So like get get this done. Like, what are we doing?" It was pretty
Dude,
funny
that's
the way he
funny.
described it.
That's funny,
But
dude. Yeah, I had no idea. Damn.
no, she has a good voice.
Yeah,
But that,
that's a really good cover.
yeah, no, 100%. I don't know if they did a full version, or if it's just for the credits. I'm not sure. Maybe she would have it on her TikTok if she did. But that brings us to the end of the episode. Again, really, really good episode. 9 out of 10. I did talk about the my issue with it, which my couple of issues with it was the Ellie thing, and then like the flashback thing, and then the wish he would have killed a couple more Raiders thing. So that's what keeps it from being a little bit of a higher rating, but it's still a solid nine episode. It had everything I needed. The relationship between Ellie and Joel, fantastic. The way they've built it is fantastic. Leaving off on a crazy cliffhanger, and then they're going to continue that cliffhanger next week with the Left Behind episode.
Yeah,
Crazy, bro.
yeah. Um, I for one absolutely love this episode. I'd probably say high nines. I thought again, dude, they just keep hitting us with like just perfect episodes. Um, continuously, week to week. It's just all the time, and I can't get enough of it. I feel like every week I'm gonna get something new. Every week I'm gonna get something fresh that's gonna make me cry 3 times an episode, and I love it. I love it. I'm here for it. I cannot wait for next week's episode, and I am really happy that they left this off on on the cliffhanger that they did.
Yeah.
It just makes it sit with you even more. And I remember Ben saying, "I'm gonna go watch the next week's on episode just to see if like I missed anything." And so I was like, "Oh yeah, I need to watch it too." And I went and watched it, and I was like, "Oh no way, it's the flashback
Yeah, bro.
episode."
That's crazy. They are wild for that.
I was like, "I love it, dude. I was like, that's so good. So yeah, I'm very excited for next week. Um, I think it's gonna be another hard hitting episode, another sad one. Um, Either way, I'm gonna be set. And then after that, we have 8 and 9.
Just
So
two more left after that. That's crazy.
I'm loving it, bro. I'm loving this.
And then we're gonna have to wait
This
like 2 years for season 2, probably. Ay,
exactly.
ay, ay.
I'm 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 taking it, man. I love it. I'm loving it so far.
But yeah, so this is gonna end our non-spoiler section. For the episode. If you guys are leaving, if you don't want any future spoilers for the rest of the season, as well as parts of season 2 and The Last of Us Part 2, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're into the MCU, go watch our Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania review, one of our best video, our best performing video ever on the channel. We want to say we appreciate you guys so much. It seriously means a lot to us, but go ahead and give that episode a listen. Here are our thoughts on Quantum Mania. Don't want to give you a little teaser of my thoughts, but yeah. But if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcast or any other audio podcast listening platform, drop us a rating, a really good rating. We're worth it. Also, if you're on there, our Quantum Mania review is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. So go ahead and give that a listen as well. We would seriously appreciate it. But without further ado, now let's begin the spoilers. 3, 2, 1. We'll see you guys later. One thing I wanted to talk about was the revelation that Maria is pregnant this time around, with Tommy's, her and Tommy's baby. And someone on TikTok had a problem with this. Someone who played the game, they genuinely did not like this inclusion. And they said specifically that because now this leaves 3 options for Tommy in Last of Us Part 2. He's going to leave and pursue Abby and all of them like he does, but he's going to now leave behind a wife and a kid, making him even more of a deadbeat than he already was for leaving Maria. 2, they're gonna lose the baby somehow, like it's gonna die early on, or they're gonna have a miscarriage, and then at that point, they said like, why would they even include this baby storyline? And then, or thirdly, he just chooses not to go at all because he has a baby and a wife at home. Couple of things I have to say about that. I'm not sure why him leaving I get that he has a kid as well, but like if he was willing to leave Maria, like he's going to be willing to leave the kid too. And I also feel like they've set up Tommy very, very well for that specifically, or at least what they've told us about Tommy. Specifically calling back to episode 4 when Joel, is telling Ellie about Tommy, he's telling Ellie how much Tommy wants to be a hero. Tommy has always wanted to go out and be looked at as the right person doing the right thing. He joined Desert Storm. He joined the army. Like he was going out and trying to do heroic things all over the place. And so what's more heroic in his mind than getting vengeance for the group of people than the one person that killed his brother? Like that makes absolute sense to me. So obviously his internal purpose and internal sense of identity is going to be, hey, I need to be a hero for my family, what's left of my family, and get revenge and against the people who took away part of my family. I think they've set up Tommy perfectly for abandoning his family like that. Not to say that Tommy's not a piece of shit for it. He absolutely is. I think he's a piece of shit for leaving Maria to begin with in the second game. Just without even really telling her. Like he's a douche for that, absolutely. And then now you put a kid into the mix, he's going to be even more of a douche for it. Yes. But I don't think they're going to kill the kid off because I agree that would just be a complete waste of even introducing the kid at all. And then for the last one, there's no way he's going to stay. There's no way Tommy's going to stay. Especially with how, again, talking about how they've set up Tommy and what he had to do to survive, that's still in Tommy. Granted, right now he's in Jackson and he's talking about how we didn't need to do those things to survive. There were other ways to survive. We just weren't good at them. He says that specifically in this episode. And yes, that is true. Absolutely true. But still, Tommy did those things. That is built into Tommy. Tommy can do those things again. And so when he watches his brother die brutally right in front of him, absolutely. There's no hesitation in my mind. Tommy's going to go out and do that stuff, despite having a kid and a wife.
Yeah, I don't think that changes much for Tommy at
Yeah.
all. Yeah, I didn't see a problem with it. I didn't even you just bringing it up now and being like, yeah, well, with the baby, and then having to go out and find Abby and everyone in Abby's group. I was still like, oh well, I can
Yeah.
still see it happening. I don't see it being a huge
Yeah.
deal. I can see it. The thing about it is when Maria comes when Tommy comes at the end of the game and talks about, hey, Joel's out there, you need to go do something about it. I can't because everything with Maria, and then he shames Ellie for it. I can see him being like, look, I fucked up the first time. I got a kid to take care of. I can't go back out there.
Yeah.
You need to do something about it. And then Ellie being like, no, like I don't know. And then Tommy shaming her for it. I can see it just bettering the story, if
Truly.
anything,
I agree.
than ruining it. No, I think it's a fine addition. I don't see anything
Yeah.
wrong with it.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I've been thinking about this myself lately, because one of the things I've praised about the show so far is how they're handling Ellie and building her with part 2 Ellie in mind.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this lately because one of my things about part 2 is Ellie loses so much of her identity in part 2 with going on this violent rampage. And so right now they're setting her up in the show to have these violent tendencies already, to sort of have this want to inflict violence, and because she felt so helpless before. And I still like that, and I still think that's good for her character. But I was just thinking about this recently that like that kind of takes away the aspect of part 2 that I enjoyed so much, because in my mind, part of the reason that she stops and doesn't kill Abby at the end is because she realizes how much she's lost herself to it. And there's little moments in the game where she realizes how much she loses herself. Like when she beats Nora to death with a pipe, she comes back and she's shaking. She's shaking. She's horrified by what she did, because she just did a similar thing to this person as to what Abby did to Joel, I imagine. That's part of the reason she's so shook up about it. But then you take that part of it, and then it seems like that part isn't in this version of Ellie. This version of Ellie doesn't seem to want to be or have, excuse me, that sort of innocence to her. She wants to be violent, wants to have those violent tendencies. And so to me, it doesn't seem like there's that much to lose, for her to lose herself with on this quest for revenge. Um, and because I've always thought in my mind that's why she envisions Joel at the end when she's stood over top of Abby or kneeling over top of Abby. Envisions Joel, envisions like the person she was with Joel, um, and like she kind of lost that along the way, along killing all these people. And so
Yeah.
it just feels like this version of Ellie, while still good, and I still think they're tapping into that violent side of her really, really well, this sort of innocent side that doesn't want anything to do with that violence doesn't seem to be getting as much time to shine. And so I feel like that's going to hinder it in season 2. But again, that remains to be seen. That's me future judging it. And I also have no idea how they're going to handle it. Maybe they'll even do some uh give her that sort of sense of innocence still later on, like after, by the end of this season. I'm very much like speaking on my thoughts right now as middle to end of season 1, and so I really have no idea where they could take things. I'm totally just speaking from my own mind. I have no idea how things are going to end up, so take everything I'm saying like with a grain of salt, and me just being nitpicky. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's just what
Um,
I'm saying.
No, because I agree in a way, and that's why, like, early in the season when we saw her stab that clicker that was stuck under all the rubble, um, I was kinda it was like I was shocked by it a little bit because I was like, "Well, damn, we're on episode 3 right now, and she's already showing those violent tendencies." We haven't even touched on, like, her, like, non-violent side or, like,
Yeah.
and maybe you can say that us not touching on the violent is touching on that that non-violent side, but at the same time, you're already throwing us in there in episode 3 this early on, like, one part of me does like it. Another part of me is like, yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a problem to question anything like that, especially because we do have time left. We do have all of season 2 left, so I don't think it's a wrong thing to bring up right now. I don't think it's a bad thing to have a kind of a worry about it either, especially since regardless, we are still very early on in the story as a
Yeah.
whole. So
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. I definitely think there's time for it to turn around. Um, I just I feel like I guess my overall point is I feel like the violent side of her is shining a lot more than the innocent side of her. And I feel like that's going
Basically,
to do a
yeah,
disservice to her season 2 journey and how that revenge sort of takes away that innocence part of her and she misses it. Granted, one could argue also that her innocence was lost when it comes to the David stuff that we're going to see later on. And so and I would agree with that. I would agree with somebody who would argue that. But there's still like even though she did that because she had to survive. In part 2, she's not doing it to survive. She's doing it because she wants to right a wrong that was done to her. And so,
yeah, and even in the game after the David stuff, I know there's a scene that somebody was talking about that they wanted to see this season, and it was Ellie. There's a moment where Joel kind of sits and waits to hoist Ellie up so they can move to the next scene, and Ellie doesn't go. And so
yeah.
usually you're used to it because automatically Ellie will go and be there. And so he gets up and he's like, Ellie. And she's like sitting down and she's like, oh, yeah, sorry. After the David stuff. And so I can very much see them playing
That's
into
true.
that a lot more.
That's true.
Um,
That's actually a really good point that you brought up. If they
yeah.
handle that kind of stuff and still include that kind of stuff, that'll put my worries at ease, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because if she's so torn up about that, torn up about the violence that she committed, like yeah, that I would enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, And then, yeah, I was just gonna say, I love how they're setting up Joel with this anxiety, being frozen in fear, and feeling the lack of like being in a protective role, to where when he finally makes that decision, it's at the worst time possible.
Dude.
And I feel like I'm interested to see a lot of the non-video game people, to see that scene and see how they react to it with everything that they're given, with everything, like with Joel being frozen in fear and showing they're already showing the more human aspect of it, the anxiety he's getting. How are they going to feel seeing him finally not be frozen and just wop 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 and then shoot Marlene and take her out of there
Jeez.
when he could have had a cure? I'm so excited. I That's one scene that I cannot wait for, and I love how they set it up in this episode. I love it so much.
Seriously. I feel like it's gonna work so much better um this time around because of all the setup. And when he like you said, when he finally gets it together and like he's like I need to protect her. I'm not letting anything stand in my way. Like that,
Yeah,
especially that's going to speak well to like, depending on how many guys he's going to take out at the hospital. That's going to speak to this scene specifically in this episode where he was surrounded by like 15 guys and he was frozen, couldn't do anything. And now
exactly.
there's going to be like 20, 15, 20 guys in the hospital. He's like, I don't give a shit. I'm getting that girl. That is, oh, bro, that's going to go so hard. That's going to go so hard, bro. I
It's
can't
it's gonna
wait.
be amazing, bro. And it's all because of the stuff they're setting up so early on. It's beautiful. I love this show so fucking much, bro. So much.
It's so good. Um,
Anything
yeah,
else?
I think that's all I had for a little spoiler talk.
Cool. I gotta go watch Cocaine Bear, baby. So we were like, we were kind of rushing through that ending. I was like, movie starts in 40 minutes. No, more like 50 minutes. So like, kind of all right. Um,
I
but
saw
yeah,
real quick, I saw off topic of The Last of Us, but something made me laugh, bro. I saw 3C on films. I don't know if you saw his tweet where he said
Mm-mm.
he went to an early screening of Cocaine Bear, and he was like, "You'll never guess what they passed out in my screening of Cocaine Bear," and he had like white powder all over his face. It was so funny, so stupid. I was just
Dog.
like, I don't know why I find this funny, but I loved it.
It would have been even more funny if he didn't even show a picture of anything. He was just like, "You'll never guess what they passed out to us at cocaine. You'll never guess what they had under all of our seats at Cocaine Bear." Dog, that's funny, bro. Hell
Damn, I
yeah,
can't wait
dude.
to hear what Ben say about it though.
Yeah, dude. 88% on Rotten Tomatoes right now with 32 reviews. Actually, that might have changed. Let me go look. I heard it was just um, a fun B tier kind of movie, like
Yeah.
So, oh, I'm excited. Let's see what it's. My movie's at 720. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Trying to find Rotten. There it is. 72 with 89 reviews. So it's kind of dropped down a little bit.
Okay.
But I feel like once those audience scores come out, it's probably going to be like lower to higher 80s.
Yeah.
I feel like. I mean, for it to already be a better rating than Quantumania, like I see like
Oh
critics
my
are kind of
god.
liking it a little bit more, which sometimes a good thing, sometimes not so much, but we'll see. It'll be fun.
Hey, if
It'll be
there's an actual
interesting.
character arc, then it's already a better movie.
For real, dude. Not even lying. All right. So that does it for the Words from Nerds podcast. We will see y'all soon, either with the Cocaine Bear review. I don't know. We'll see. If not, for sure, for The Last of Us episode 7 in a couple days.
Yeah.
Um, Left Behind, I believe, with
Yeah.
Ellie and
That's gonna be
Riley.
another heartbreaking episode.
Yeah, dude. It'll be very, very interesting. It'll be interesting to see how everyone that felt about episode 3 feels about this one as well.
Oh,
Ah,
I can't wait. Can't wait.
can't wait to laugh in all their faces. Without further ado, that has been The Last of Us episode 6. Be back soon. Uh, Everything in the link in the bio. Again, huge thank you if you checked out Ant-Man Quantumania. Everything's in the bio. Don't got to reiterate it.
Yeah.
Charlie, anything else?
Yeah. Links in the bio. Again, yeah, go give the Quantum Mania review a listen. We had two wonderful guests, Mimish and Benjamin. They had a lot of good thoughts on the film as well. So seriously, thank you guys so much for listening. We will catch you either with Cocaine Bear. If not Cocaine Bear, then it'll definitely be The Last of Us episode 7. So thank you guys so much. Adios.
Peace.